Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I am your host, Ken M. Joining me in studio this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Also joining the broadcast this week, your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
What is going on, everybody?
And last but not least, we have a surprise for everybody. Parlay Points contributor, the one and only Nostradogmus, Edwin Fortunato.
What's going on, fellas?
Dog, glad you can join the show. Thank you for tuning in this week. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. Join in the conversation on social media because, hey, we want to talk with you. A lot of action going on in the world of sports, but none bigger than the fallout from UFC 236.
Holy cow, what a set of matches, I should say.
Absolutely. The main events, because I can't even say there was a co-main.
No.
Because both fights delivered on different levels, but holy smokes. It was incredible to see the action going on. So let us kick off with some results. Pad, what you got?
Well, of course, the second to last fight, because as you said, there was no co-main event. This is like two main events. First one was the middleweight fight between Isreal Adesanya versus Kelvin Gastelum, where Isreal Adesanya defeated Kelvin Gastelum by unanimous decision with 48-46, 48-46, and 48-46 being the judge's decision.
This was an incredible fight. Dare I say this might have been fight of the year.
It's in that conversation.
It's in that conversation because going in with the drama going into this, and we talked about this a little bit last week, Robert Whittaker, the middleweight champion, was injured. He's recovering from hernia surgery. He's looking to be coming back later this year. So obviously they had to do an interim title belt. Kelvin Gastelum was supposed to fight him on that card. Unfortunately, the fight was canceled, so he's been waiting for the winner. Isreal Adesanya has been flying up the ranks and put on an impressive performance against Anderson Silva. So finally the fight happens, and this one was rock'em sock'em robots to
in every sense of the word.
Absolutely. I mean, the way I scored it, I actually thought Kelvin won this fight, but it was very, very close. And this is one of those fights that you really don't want to see a loser. Like, this kind of almost reminded me of Shogun and Dan Henderson first fight, where it was just at the end of it, you just didn't have a fighter that you're like, oh, they definitely lost. Like, this one was so close, and just the display put on by both fighters. I mean, Dog, you saw this fight. What was your take on this?
Oh, it was definitely a war. I was pulling for Kelvin myself, but Adesanya came overthrew in the fifth round there and really took it. I thought it was closer than the judge's scorecard, but it was a war, and it was a good fight.
Definitely was, Coach.
I'm more interested in what happened after that fight, baby.
Well, we will get into
that's where I'm all for that. I saw, so I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I saw the highlights from ESPN, and these two looked like they were swinging for the fences and banging on each other. I mean, obviously Adesanya, coming off of that win against Silva, was looking really, really good, going into this fight, and he obviously was able to put it together for an interim title belt.
Yeah, this one was just like razor close, and how I was scoring it too, the third round is what swayed it, in my opinion, because Adesanya took over in the fifth, like in the later rounds. Kelvin was definitely putting the pressure on, but just that fifth round, Adesanya took over. But that third round could have gone either way, depending on how you score it. And I know there was a takedown in there. And obviously, at the end of the fight, I mean, like you say, there really was no loser, but there was a definitive winner, and Adesanya is now your middleweight champion. And then, Coach, why don't you explain what happened after the fight?
Well, a little Mr. Named by John Jones came by and decided to tweet at Adesanya, talking about how, if you want to claim, your name to fame, but you beat an older fighter, come see me, come hunt for me, or paraphrasing there. And Adesanya came back and basically said that John was bullying him. And John replied back and said, welcome to the jungle, kid. I mean, if you want to mess with the lion or the king, yeah, come get it. So that would be very interesting to see that.
Pat, you got any thoughts on this?
Just wild to see it go back and forth because this is a fight like between the two of them that I never would have ever considered.
Yeah, this one, Adesanya has that Anderson Silva mystique to him. And he definitely has a unique style. His striking is just, unparalleled right now. And for John, who is back and, dominating at 205, you have to think that down the road, this fight needs to happen. John doesn't appear to be heading to heavyweight anytime soon. Now, this could be subject to change at any moment. But if he's going to stay at 205 and Adesanya, let's say hypothetically he cleans out the 185 division. Let's just say that. Then that fight makes a lot of sense if John is still winning.
I mean, it makes sense for John because he needs somebody to fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Because right now, light heavyweight is scarce.
Right. Reyes is up there. Our personal favorite, Johnny Walker, is in contention.
Yeah,
Someday. But right now, it is looking kind of scarce of who's going on there. And obviously, John's got a big fight against Thiago Santos coming up. But for Adesanya, and obviously he's got to get through Robert Whittaker later this year. That fight is going to be the next one definitively for him. And it makes sense, too, because Whittaker unfortunately couldn't make his original fight against Gastelum, but this fight is just destined to happen. And Whittaker is no slouch, and I know I usually pick against him, and he just definitively proves me wrong on every level. This fight, when this happens, I don't know who you take. This one is going to be just something to watch for the record books, because we say this is Fight of the Year candidate now. Don't sleep when that fight happens later on down the road. And then now looking at the quote-unquote main event of the card, Pat, what you got?
Well, it was between a lightweight fight between Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway, where Dustin Poirier defeated Max Holloway by unanimous decision with the score being 49-46, 49-46, and 49-46.
Dog, what was your take on that?
That was a war, too. It was just back and forth. Holloway's a crazy, just calling him out while his face full of blood, and they were trading punches and going at it. It was an entertaining fight.
Oh, absolutely. The one thing about this, which has to be definitely stated, Max Holloway, the king of the featherweight division, moved up from 145 to 155. Maybe it was just me, and obviously you can definitely hit me up on ODPH hashtag and correct me if I'm wrong. Did he look very skinny? Like, he didn't look like he really put on a lot of muscle walking 155 for this one.
He didn't look any different than he normally did, because I think I saw someplace, maybe it was Twitter, I can't remember where, but it was like a side-by-side or, comparison of him between his traditional weight class and then this weight class. He really, in all honesty, he didn't look skinnier to me, but I was looking at the guy, I'm like, I'm not seeing much difference here. I feel like there should be at least maybe a slight difference.
Yeah, I thought that maybe he would have had a more physical look to him. But take nothing away from the performance. Holloway showed up and he was ready to go. There was no, difference of, moving up the weight class per se. Like, you didn't see any kind of sluggish cardio effect from it.
Right.
But Poirier, from the minute the bell began, his striking was just very crisp. He was landing a lot of headshots, a lot of straight punches, and he definitely was, putting the pressure on Max, which for Max, he did weather the storm. His face was very bloody, as Dog was saying.
Yeah.
He took some shots.
Yeah, he was definitely wearing the damage. And when Max started finally kicking into gear, it was right about the third round. This is how I had it scored on the ODPH Twitter, is Max was coming into his own late, and he was definitely hitting a lot of punches. He was I think he started getting Poirier's timing down a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was connecting, too. That's the one thing. With Poirier, he didn't look like he took a lot of damage, but he was definitely taking damage in those rounds. And then Max was just going. But, boy, when he got cut in the fourth round, I almost thought they were going to stop it. And it was just such a deep and nasty cut. So when it got to the fifth, it was going very back and forth. But I had Poirier winning that one. And I thought that he did enough late, just, in certain control and just, putting the pressure on Max late, that I think it swayed the judges. Because I know post-fight, it was tweeted out by a few people that it should have been a draw. So I'm just kind of curious around the panel, what was your thoughts on that? Should it have been a draw or no?
No. I don't think it was, personally watching the fight, I don't think it was 49-46.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Poirier won, but I think it was a little closer than 49-46. I don't think it was a draw, though.
Coach?
I mean, sometimes it's the damage that you inflict can be telling. And I mean, if the guy is a bleeder, or known to get cut open easily, that's an unfortunate aspect of his characteristic, as a fighter. But sometimes to me, it's the damage matters, because as the fight accrues, that just shows that the guy's landing heavy shots, which Poirier was clearly doing. So, unfortunately, that cut to Holloway, I would lean Poirier, maybe not as the scorecard did, but yeah, I mean, he obviously got the biggest cut of the fight, so I would lean that way.
Dog?
I don't think it was unanimous as the judges scored it. It was competitive back and forth, and I thought it was a lot closer than it seemed.
Yeah, it definitely had that feel to it. Like I said, but I didn't struggle with the decision, and like I say, and Coach touched upon something too. Aesthetically, Holloway did look defeated because of the cut, and that was wearing, and how Poirier was putting the pressure on late. And like I said, the later in the round, Poirier just seemed like he got his timing going, and that's where I think he won the octagon control from it. I mean, was it a dominant thing? No. I mean, he did press him up against the cage, but I think overall at the end of the fight, in the later couple minutes of the fight, that's when Poirier was really putting it on. So now Dustin Poirier is your interim lightweight champion. Khabib tweeted out, I mean, he said he thought it was a draw, but he is very excited to fight Poirier, and he's leaning now September. Okay. Was the date that I saw tweeted.
Okay.
Didn't have a card date, didn't have anything specific, but it's moved up from the original word that we were hearing from various sources and pages that he was coming back in November. So now looking at the rankings, does everybody agree that Poirier versus Khabib is the fight that needs to happen, or where do we go from here?
Yeah, you have to.
Absolutely.
You have to. You got to unify the belt.
I agree, too. Because I know you've heard different fighters jump in, and obviously with an interim title, if Poirier didn't want to wait for Khabib, he could definitely defend it. And obviously looking at the rankings, too, it all depends on where they want to go with it. But I think that fight definitely needs to happen. I don't think he needs to rush back in the cage anytime soon.
I mean, if Poirier wants to fight again, then you have to look Ferguson or you have to look at Conor.
Yeah.
But Conor's still retired as of this recording.
Right. Well, as of right now, even though he did come out and say that you're going to see me in the octagon within 6 months. So,
right.
I mean, what octagon that is, who knows? But yeah, whatever.
Right. I mean, that's just the one situation you just don't know.
Right.
And what's going on there. And like I said, I think Poirier is more than willing to wait for this fight, which I don't think it holds up that division at all. Lightweight is so stacked. I mean, you look at it from top to bottom. I mean, everybody is, vying to get in line to go fight Khabib, if that's going to be the fight, or Poirier now after they do the battle.
I mean, it's only 5 months away. I mean, you look at it right now. I mean, if Poirier fights, we're talking it's April 17th right now. So if he fights, maybe he gets medically cleared July-ish. Mm-hmm. So 3 months. Then let's just say he really takes a beating. That fight still wins, his fight. The earliest that you would be able to get the Khabib fight now is November.
Right.
Or December. So now you're prolonging Khabib fighting again, because then if he takes a fight in September when he wants to, then timing might not work out. We might not get this fight till 2020.
Right, and I think they just need to have those two just wait and fight.
Yeah, I think just shove them, and then maybe have in the meantime Conor and Ferguson fight, while they're waiting for the that unification match.
Yeah, and then on the flip side of this, Max Holloway. Dog, do you think he should stay at 140 or 155 or go back down to 145?
I think he should stay at 145. He's a champion there, so I think he should stay. There's so much belt holding up or whatever. Just
there's a log jam.
Yeah, that him going back to 145. I think that's what Dana White was actually alluding to as well, of him going back to 145, which I don't struggle with that at all. I mean, he definitely can fight at 155, but I think he's more dominant at 145 instead of 155, rather.
I mean, and I'm looking at the 145 rankings. I mean, there's still some names in there that, I'd like to see him fight him. Of course, you've got Brian Ortega, Frankie Edgar, Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson. There's some names in there that, put him against, Max Holloway. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, some of those will be rematches for him. I mean, he's definitely put on an entertaining show, whoever he's faced at 145. And just now, where do you go from here? It's going to be really interesting to see, because he is the king of the 145 division. There's no question of it. I mean, he's obviously had some great title defenses. I mean, look against what he did against Brian Ortega. Look what he did against Jose Aldo. He took out two of the biggest names in that division. I don't really know if there's a clear-cut new contender for him. I think there's a couple of guys that are coming up in the ranks that could fight him. But overall, I think Max has got the flexibility. If he wants to fight both divisions, he can. But 145, I think, makes a lot more sense to him.
Yeah.
I think right now it does with the way that 155 is. It's just there's so many names right now.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he can jump in there anytime and help out the UFC if he wants to step up and do it. He's got the name, he's got the recognition, and he's got the pedigree to do it.
Yeah, and he's probably walking around 160, in between fights anyway. So it's a small cut for him,
right?
At most,
Right. And there was no real visibility. Like I said, he did look smaller in the fight, but he's definitely landed enough punches that it just, like I said, doing the eye test, he kind of looked smaller, but I think he looked at a lot healthier fighting too.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? He might have even cut to the point he might have I don't know what he weighed in at, but maybe, in the official weigh-in, maybe it was, under 155 and maybe even 153 or something like that, which, yeah, I mean, that would make you look a little smaller than what you were standing next to, because Poirier could have been, carrying around at 160.
Right. There's a lot of interesting questions coming out of this fight. But definitely hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What was your thoughts on UFC 236? How did you think about the fights, and where do you think the fighters are going from here? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jimmy Gazdick from Crimson Brethren and Floodlands, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for a second segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and it is NFL time. Mm-hmm. Fastly approaching. The NFL draft is next week.
Yep. The schedule gets released Wednesday night.
Right, and we think we're going to get a parlay points breakdown of the schedule from the one and only Nostradogmus, who's in studio. But the big news of the day, though, involving the NFL, was Russell Wilson re-upping.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Pad, you got the money?
Holy sugar cookies. I wish I had this kind of money. Not going to lie. For contract details are as follows. He re-upped for 4 years, $140 million. Signing bonus of $65 million. Making an average salary of $35 million. Total guaranteed $107 million. He could become an unrestricted free agent in the year 2024. And it's not listed here on spotrac.com, which I highly recommend if you are very curious about any athletes' contracts. They have a lot of details and they really break it down for you. If that's spotrac.com. They don't have it listed here, but I remember reading someplace that he had like a no trade clause or something like that. But holy cow, get paid.
The now highest paid player in the NFL, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Dog, you are the Seattle Seahawks fan in the room. How do you feel about this move?
I feel they had to do it. There was so much trade talk, and did he want to go to New York? It's just, I don't know where the April 15th deadline came from, but he did wait, his last extension, he did wait before training camp, but the numbers speak for themselves with Russell Wilson. He's unbelievable. He's carried that team a lot on his back the last couple of years after Marshawn left, but the guy's just, he's definitely worth it. And just as a Seahawks fan, I don't want to start over with somebody else, so it's like you had to do it.
Coach, what do you feel about this move?
Well, as the resident Giants fan in the room, and all the rumors of everybody in the NFL reporting that Russell wanted out of Seattle, he wanted to be in New York. I mean, I was kind of surprised. The deadline, was fastly approaching, and he was making it very clear that he was not going to negotiate afterwards. So I 100% saw the Giants with these 2 first-round picks. And I thought one way or another they were going to offer 1 or 2 and either make a trade for him now before the deadline, or they were going to wait for free agency and try and lure him, once Eli's off the books. I mean, not saying that I saw they were going to both have Eli and Russell on pay this year. I'm just saying, like, I saw them pursuing him in some way or fashion. I mean, wow, that's a contract. That's crazy. I didn't see them paying him the kind of money that he was looking for, especially given the fact that, the team is up there in age and the NFC West is highly competitive right now. So I would have almost, been surprised to see them take this route because, I mean, obviously age gets up there for quarterbacks, and I know Tom Brady's still playing at an elite level at, in his 40s, but then you see the slippery slope that is Eli Manning. So you see the other side of players approaching 40 and what they can do. So especially given the fact that Russell Wilson's an athletic quarterback and relies on his legs so much, that's only going to start to decline, as he continues to age. So it's like to invest that much, even if it's a 4-year deal, is pretty big on a team that, might need to be rebuilding within that 4 years.
Right.
I mean, this is a great bang for the Seahawks buck when you look at it, because this is something that even I will admit I didn't realize until I started pulling up some statistics. Russell Wilson has become something of a little bit of an Iron Man in the NFL. I'm looking at his statistics, and specifically since he was drafted in 2012, he has not missed a game. He has started every game of every season from 2012 through last season.
That's remarkable.
That's it. So when you look at a guy, a lot of times you look at a guy, oh, well, they're going to get hurt. They're going to miss time. Wilson ain't missed any time. And, I mean, you look at his numbers from last year where he threw for a little over 3,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. That's great numbers.
Yeah, he definitely puts up the numbers, and he is the face of the Seattle Seahawks. He is the face of the franchise. There's no question about that. And for him, I know a dog is giving me the thumbs up about this one. He is definitely worth it to that franchise because, like Coach was saying, if they were going to get rid of him and they were going to start rebuilding, and especially with how competitive the NFC West is. I mean, let's look. The Rams, fresh off the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. You take a look at the 49ers.
We're going to bounce back after last year.
On the up.
Yeah, who are on the up. Arizona with the number 1 pick, and who knows what's going to happen there. They can definitely make some moves depending on what they make happen in the draft. There's just a lot of competitiveness in the NFC West.
I mean, to your point with Arizona, very solid defense though.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happens on the offensive side of the ball, that defense was pretty solid last year.
They always gave Seattle a run for their money, no matter where you played them. They're just something about Arizona like frightens me every time. It's just
it's like whenever New England goes down to Miami. Miami can have whatever record they want, 1-16, 0-6, 0-16, whatever it ends up being. They can have the best record in the NFL. New England shows up to Miami, they're going to get up and play. It's the same thing with Seattle and Arizona. Arizona can have whatever record they have. Seattle's walking into town. Oh, all right, boys, strap up your laces.
Well, it's one thing too because it's the division too.
Oh yeah,
and no matter, I've talked about this on previous shows too. No matter how bad a team is having a season, they will always show up for division rivals. It's just the competitiveness of sports. If you're in that division, you get up for those teams. Like I know when the Bills have had awful years, they always get up for the Patriots games. They always get up for the Dolphins. They always get up for the Jets.
My biggest problem with this contract is when you invest that much money in your QB, and I understand that quarterbacks are the franchise player and the cornerstone piece of your franchise. You look at the other teams that have invested heavily, have a good amount of money into the quarterback position. The Ravens, the Giants, just to name a couple. Green Bay is another one. The problem is when you invest that much money, especially when you're talking almost 1/4 of the salary cap, or in some cases 1/3, depending on the contract that they get. That eats at your salary cap. So then you have to take away from other positions.
Yeah.
They've already had bad offensive lines in Seattle. I mean, look at the Giants. I mean, Eli's contract that he signed 3 years ago has basically killed any progress that they had to build because they had to cut in other areas, and offensive line was one of them. Tom Brady, on the other hand, takes money away from his contract when he re-ups because of the fact that he knows that the team's going to invest that money in other places.
I'm looking at Spotrac.com. Coach is absolutely right because you look at the teams that are below the league average of $19.3 million in salary cap space. You've got the New York Giants, New Orleans Saints, Pittsburgh Steelers, Los Angeles Rams, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Minnesota Vikings, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, if memory serves, they've all got quarterbacks with pretty big deals.
Right. I mean, this is going to be a huge trendsetter for them moving forward, and especially when you start talking in franchise tags.
Yeah.
That now, the going rate to franchise an NFL quarterback is going to be skyrocketing. So for teams that are on the fence if they want to keep a quarterback or not, I mean, this is going to be a huge factor they got to think about.
$54 million by 2022.
Woo. I mean, it's crazy. You're investing all that capital in one position, one spot.
Yeah.
that you can literally get a guy who's a game manager to go in and win. I mean, Pat, I'm going to commend you on Tom Brady. I don't really care one way or another about New England because I'm not an AFC guy like you are, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know the evil Patriots, but Tom Brady gets it. He understands the fact that I don't need to pursue this money because I have outside investments and outside money coming in that's going to make up for the salary that I'm not making while I'm able to get Demaryius Thomas.
Right.
Or I'm able to pursue a tight end now that Gronk retired.
I'll say Brady's most recent contract was a 2-year, $30 million deal.
And look what happened in Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. Flacco came off of that almost MVP season. They gave him that huge 5-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid money at the time. Look where Baltimore is now. Where's he playing, guys? Denver.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's a catch-22 because if teams are feeling that this is their guy and they can't let him go, and he's the leader of the franchise, he's the face of it, they do.
I mean, they hold your feet to the fire. I get it.
Yeah, but no, and as much as I hate saying this, I agree with you, Coach, about Brady.
Yeah.
Brady gets it. Brady doesn't have to put up 400 yards a game.
Peyton got it late in his career, too.
Right. But he just has to manage the game and manage wins.
Right.
If you're winning, you'll make up your lost wages.
Exactly.
Per se, for the most part.
Peyton held Indianapolis, to the fire for years. I mean, that's what held that team back from going to the Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden it clicked for him, and he realized, I got to cut back on what I'm making so we can reinvest this in other, positions. And that's when the team was able to go out and get defensive players, and they had studs on the defensive end with Freeney. They had another defensive end. They added the safety there, and they had a corner. I mean, they had a stout defense that year. They made that run to the Super Bowl that they were able to do that. But before, they couldn't do it because they didn't have the money.
But it's the argument, though, that if a player, and especially with how the business is run,
right,
that if you are putting up the stats, you want to get compensated for it. I fully get that. I'm not saying don't pay by any means, but it's just one of those really fine lines you walk where it's almost, are you detrimenting the success of your team by getting, being successful and being paid? It's one of those weird arguments.
Yeah.
That, I mean, sometimes it works out in the favor, like we said, with Brady and how the Patriots do their business. I mean, Brady was still getting paid, but he's not doing any astronomical contracts.
No.
But, you flip the coin with, like, Wilson's deal. Yeah, he's worth every penny to the Seahawks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if they let him go, like, hypothetically, and I'm stressing this, dog, hypothetically, if they let him go, who is their backup?
I don't even know.
I mean, now, though, you're looking at a guy who in this contract is going to be 34 years old with a team on the up in Los Angeles, because let's face it, the Rams are only going to go up from here. I mean, their core is young.
Yeah.
I mean, the oldest player that they have is on the defensive side, and they're like in their 30s. The 49ers are also on the up and also very young. So it's a division that's on the rise, not on the decline.
I looked it up. The Seahawks' backup quarterback is Paxton Lynch.
Formerly from Denver.
Yeah, you don't want anything to do with that. And I understand. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I get why they do it. It's just, it can kill your franchise when you're talking about the fact that you have other positions of need that now you're heavily invested in one.
Right, and that's going to be something for the Seahawks that, is this going to come back and haunt them down the road, or is this the quick fix right now? Me personally, they had to make this deal. Albeit, though, I'm very surprised that it's just now we have another highest paid player in the league. Like, it almost is like, where's the line, so to speak?
Well, I mean, if he gets sacked, a record amount of times, we know why.
Yeah.
Because that offensive line was bad last year, right, dog?
See, the thing of it is, though, is will it come back to bite him and back later and down the road? We'll see. The thing with the NFL, though, is that it's not like other sports where you sign this contract, you are locked into this thing. They can rework these deals.
Oh,
and
sure.
nullify,
I get it.
Whatever's left in the contract to make it more team friendly down the road if they have to.
Right. And when he turns 33, they might, but not for the first 2 years. He's not going to listen to that.
Yeah, that's what they did with his last contract. I think they did rework. I think it ended up costing them a little bit in the franchise, whatever tag, but they Seattle was pretty smart with it. Just I feel they didn't give Russell Wilson everything he wanted. He wanted like percentage of this, like the salary cap increase in the next few years. So it's like they didn't give everything he wanted. So
Right. I mean, in the NFL, you can cut anybody at any point with it just being a cap penalty. So, I mean, yeah, that works out for them in that standpoint. But at the same time, like, you cut your franchise quarterback, like, in the way that, you know, like, the Giants would have had to done it had they traded for, you know, Russell. It was like you're going to get killed by that, fan support.
He may not have gotten everything he wanted, but he ain't exactly shedding a tear over $140 million over 4 years.
Not at all.
Oh, no, by no means. But, I mean, going forward with this, I mean, this contract is definitely one to watch and see how it favors Seattle or it really hurts them. Because, like we said, going all in on one player, even though it is the quarterback and arguably the biggest position on your team, arguably.
Right.
To go in with all that money and really tie up the positions and cap space that, you know, you can't go get a lot of players to help a lot of needs. This is just one thing that's either going to bend or break, and just depending on what side of the fence you come out on it.
Well, I'm going to say that when you invest in this, in that, you know, heavily in that position, that's where you got to do really well in the draft. And that's where the Giants did not do very well in the draft. They invested heavily in Eli, and then the rookies that came in never really panned out. Pittsburgh, on the flip side of that, you know, invested heavily in Ben Roethlisberger, but they hit on their draft picks. So that's where you can, you know, help counter it. Baltimore, on the flip side, again, struck out on a ton of draft picks. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's like, if you're going to invest in it, you gotta buy low.
Well, it just goes back to where the draft is so important. I mean, we're going to get into that next week because we're going to be doing our NFL draft preview. But this is just one of those situations where when you sign a big contract like this for one player, and it really is going to be a trick and almost like a chess match of just what pieces and what moves you have to make to really win the game, because when you tie up this much money and you don't have much freedom to kind of move around and fill needs on your team, this is where you're going to kind of have to take a shot and really do your homework and develop through the draft.
I think we won't immediately see the ripples of this deal for a couple of years. I mean, I'm looking at some future free agents for quarterbacks. I think 2021 is the first year we're going to really start to see the effects of this. You've got Kirk Cousins is going to be a free agent, Cam Newton, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, you know, Patrick Mahomes, just to name a few.
I was just going to say, yeah,
they're all going to be free agents in 2021. So that's going to be the year where we see these kind of big deal contracts for quarterbacks, and what does it mean going forward?
Well, Cousins just got paid.
Cousins.
So is he going to ask for more? Well, no. I'm saying, yeah, he might be a free agent at that class, right, but he's coming off of a huge deal too himself.
Yeah, and plus he has to really, in comparison to Patrick Mahomes, because I think when I heard that name, that's the one that really rang out.
Him and Carolina. No, Newton. Those are the two that really, Mahomes and Newton, because Newton's been the franchise guy. I mean, they gave him the keys very, very early on and entrusted him with the franchise. So him and Mahomes, absolutely.
But with Mahomes putting up the numbers, if he continues to do that, because, I mean, like we said, great first year running the team full.
Sure.
Can he continue doing this? If he can, and when he starts getting the free agency time, I mean, you think this is a big number right now?
Well, they're already talking about trading Tyreek Hill to get him off the book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just telling you where their mindset is.
Right. But this is one of those things, to wrap up the segment, though, this is one of those questions that teams are going to really have to figure out, because especially when is enough to, you know, pay one player to then also keep your team afloat. It's a really interesting match that you got to think about going forward. And this is where the NFL draft comes into play. It's NFL time, slowly creeping up on us, folks, but hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts on Russell Wilson's contract? Was it worth it? Was it not? And what do you think this is going to be moving forward for your team? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Rob Kacharik from the band 607, Autopilot Off, and Walking Distance, and you're listening to ODPH.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we're talking playoffs. Playoffs. And we're talking a little NBA and a little NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But let us first dig into the NBA, and was there ever a bigger game than Golden State and the Clippers?
Going into it, I would have said no. Coming out of it, absolutely. I had a friend who lives out on the West Coast text me the morning after the game, and he said he'd actually turned the game off at one point because, well, Golden State was up by 31, and Golden State's usually up by that much. You can put it on cruise control. They're golden, baby. No pun intended. He then goes, I never regret turning off a game more than I did that one.
Break it down for us, Pat.
Well, so of course, as I mentioned, at one point during the game, the Golden State Warriors were up 31 points on the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. Where, if I'm not mistaken, Golden State was up 1-0. And at one point during the game, DeMarcus Cousins went down with a quad injury. Now, we found out today he does not need surgery, but he is out for the remainder of the playoffs, so that's good for Golden State, and it's good for DeMarcus because that was the initial thing I was kind of concerned about with his injury was not even, he spent all that time rehabbing and getting back, and then he's going to be out another year plus. So luckily for him, he's not going to be out for another full year, but who knows what his future is. But then, the LA Clippers, sparked by the ghost of who knows what, went on a monster roll and came back from a 31-point deficit, doing your Buffalo Bills proud by deficits there.
The ghost of Darius Miles
There you go.
Quentin Richardson.
I'll say they're doing the Buffalo Bills proud, Buffalo Bills against the Houston Oilers way back in the day.
This one was just shocking for me. For 31 points to come back from, and especially like Pat was touching upon, this is Golden State.
Yeah, I'll say the over-under on this was 234, and then the line going into this was Golden State by 13.5.
Right, but to lose a 31-point lead, and then, give credit to the Clippers. They're doing this.
I'll say Danilo Gallinari had 24 points, Patrick Beverley
The Rooster
had 10, Shamper had 12, you had Green with 13, Harrell with 25, Williams with 36 off the bench. Holy crap.
Now, Dog, you are the Western Conference aficionado of the group here. You're Oklahoma City all day. What was your take on this game?
I think it's been embarrassing for the Warriors, especially to lose that big of a lead, especially at home.
I'll say, especially when we, going into the season, DeMarcus Cousins and this and that, when we were sitting here saying they might be lucky if they lose 3 games all season.
Right.
That they're going to run away with this, that they're going to sweep this, that, and the other. They're going to sweep every team from here to Timbuktu, for them to blow that lead and lose.
Absolutely crazy.
All right, let's hold on. Because let's not forget Kevin Durant fouled out of this game. DeMarcus Cousins goes down. And now, from a coaching standpoint, and we talked about this with Duke and Coach K, with when Zion went down in that bad loss that they had in North Carolina, it is very difficult to adjust on the fly to lose 2 players like that. I know Kevin Durant was late in the game, but DeMarcus going down early, it messes up your rotation. It screws up the type of game flow that you're going to have with your offense and the flow of the game. And I understand that they still have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but just like Duke, it doesn't matter the level of talent you have when you were thrown off kilter by losing 2 of your best players.
Let's say, they still have Curry and Thompson, but it also doesn't help when Curry went 8 for 18 from the floor and Klay Thompson went 6 for 11 from the floor.
And
that's not even the 3-point numbers.
Yeah, when you live and die by the 3, that's the other thing that happens. Listen, my biggest takeaway from that game is Patrick Beverley.
Yeah.
This man is playing at 6'1", covering Kevin Durant and getting him in foul trouble because he's a ferocious animal when he's covering him and getting in his face, being that pesky defender that nobody likes. The guy that when you play pickup, it's like, I don't want to cover that guy. That guy plays too much defense. Like he's a gnat. I don't want to deal with him. That's what he's doing, and that's what's driving Kevin Durant nuts. He's also playing Steph Curry, which is a perfect matchup for him because they're the same size and he can just chase him around the floor. Landry Shamet was the underrated aspect of that trade from Philly to Los Angeles because the kid was being groomed by J.J. Redick to be that kind of player that comes off the screens, knows the angles and all that stuff, and has developed a consistent 3-point shot that is dangerous in the NBA. This Clipper team is very, very young and very, very good. I do not think, and this might be a very bad take, and I hope it's not going to end up on Cold Hard Takes, that I do not worry that Golden State's going to lose this series. I still think they're going to pull it out, but my God, the Clippers are dangerous, and they will push this Golden State team to at least Game 6.
I think for the Warriors, this was one of those games that you see for a lot of teams in playoffs where you're walking down the street and you almost step off the curb and you get shocked a little bit. I think this was the shocking moment for the Warriors that hey, we're not as invincible as a lot of people think we are. And they're not going to take anything for granted. Now, they're not going to go out and they're not going to play like, the USA Dream Team, but I don't think they'll have a performance like this again.
No, because you can't forget I mean, when I talk about the adjustments too, the Warriors bench is not deep to begin with.
Right.
Wow.
So you lose Cousins, and I mean, looking at the bench right now, that means minutes are going to Kevin Looney and
Bogut.
and Bogut, got a couple, and Andre Iguodala. And those are not those second team units need then a DeMarcus Cousins to be paired with. They need a Kevin Durant to get paired with to get them through because they cannot be relied upon to score them on their own. Andre Iguodala is not a scorer. He's a defensive player who every once in a while will get you a bucket.
Right.
And DeMarcus Cousins, can carry a second unit. Kevin Durant can carry a second unit. And when you watch Golden State games, you see that's who gets paired with the second unit. It's always either DeMarcus with Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant on his own, but that's because Durant is on a whole nother level. He doesn't need to be get paired with somebody else. So when you take that away from your rotation, now everything's thrown off guard, and that's how Clippers were able to get back in the game because they went on a huge run against that second unit that was missing Klay Thompson and DeMarcus Cousins.
It's one of those interesting things that I know we're really emphasizing about this, but this was like the biggest story of the playoffs so far.
That and Giannis taking off from the free throw line.
Well, that goes without saying. It's Giannis. But for the Clippers, who came in as such heavy underdogs, and Golden State with the pedigree they have, the fact that Golden State blew a 31-point lead, that was a definite message statement by the Clippers.
Sure.
That they can hang with them. And obviously with Game 3 taking place Thursday night, this is all the Warriors are going to hear. So how they come out the gate is going to be really interesting.
Well, I'll say so far the playoffs actually in the NBA have been really good so far. I mean, obviously, Milwaukee is going to absolutely annihilate Detroit. I mean, Blake Griffin now doesn't sound like he's going to play a game in the series.
Right.
Not that mattered anyway because Milwaukee's at another level right now. But even the Philly-Brooklyn series is tremendous. The Oklahoma City... the Oklahoma City Portland series is tremendous. Portland is such an underrated team.
Yeah.
That, I mean, the way that they are just handling Oklahoma City. And, Damian Lillard's on a whole nother level right now. I mean, that guy is seeing an ocean when he's shooting the ball into it right now, into the hoop. So those are some series that are really, really fun to watch. I mean, I stayed up to watch at least the first half because, it gets past my bedtime pretty early these days. I stayed up to watch that Oklahoma City game.
I regret staying up.
No, I'm with Coach on this one. I mean, I'm looking at the brackets. Of course, you got the Golden State and the Clippers, Rockets and the Jazz, Trailblazers and Thunder and everybody else. The only matchup I can see getting, swept is the Bucks sweeping the Pistons because Giannis and that entire Bucks team are playing like a bunch of kids who had their lunch money stolen.
Yeah, I mean they're pissed.
Yeah,
they're definitely like, you're not giving us any credit.
And that's a chip on the shoulder they need to have because let's face it, this is the first playoffs without LeBron in many, many years. And it was always said, well, whoever comes out of the East isn't going to be able to contend. Milwaukee had one of the best years on record.
I'll say the game one of the Milwaukee-Detroit Pistons series was 121-86. The entire starting five for the Bucks was in double figures.
Right. They came ready. And I think that's going to carry them a long way in these playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have anybody. I mean, outside of Toronto, who if Lowry needs to play like he did in Game 2, because if we get Game 1 Kyle Lowry for the rest of the way, Toronto's toast.
Oh yeah, they're done.
Yeah,
they'll
be done.
Kawhi is the only one who can handle Giannis.
Yeah.
Now Philly and Ben Simmons will be an interesting matchup because I'm pretty sure that's the round 2, but I don't think that Ben Simmons can play enough. I mean, well, no, they went back and forth all year, so no, I take that back. Ben Simmons and Giannis will be a great matchup.
Oh, it's going to be a fun one to watch if that's the setup. That's going to be a real fun series to watch.
If the 76ers do end up beating the Bucks, it wouldn't be until the conference finals.
Okay, well, then that's going to be a great conference finals.
Whoever Giannis plays, it'll be either Boston or the Pacers.
Oh, so, okay. No, Jason Tatum, I love you. You're Duke, brotherhood. You cannot cover Giannis.
No. Giannis, I think, is going to tear right through the Celtics.
Yeah.
I have that feeling. It's nothing against Boston, but I'm just being very honest. I think Kyrie is already thinking free agency, and I'm not saying he's checked out, but I don't think he's like in full playoff mode.
Well, I mean, he did say some things yesterday about holding down the fort till Marcus Smart comes back, which Marcus Smart's not coming back till the Eastern Conference Finals at the earliest. So, I mean, I think he is dialed in a little bit, but I think Giannis is going to help pack his bags to New York.
I agree, too.
Oh.
I think fully. I think that, Milwaukee has a great underdog story for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then when we flip it now to the NHL,
Holy sugar
boy.
cookies.
yes, one of the biggest underdog stories going on is the Columbus Blue Jackets
Yeah.
defeating and sweeping the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I saw a thing. I think it was last night. There was a sports book in Jersey that offered odds on Columbus to sweep the Tampa Bay Lightning, and those odds were 50-1. I also read Vegas was giving odds on it. They were like 45-1 or something like that. I can't speak for Vegas, but I know the one I read about Jersey, the 50-1 odds on Columbus sweeping the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nobody took that bet.
I mean, the ironic thing here is John Tortorella,
Yeah.
Yep.
who for years with the Rangers struggled against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Struggled in the first opening round division. Struggled to get out of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then to see him now, the demons lifted off of his back and all of a sudden beat Tampa Bay in the first round in a sweep nonetheless. Where was that in New York?
You know what, Dog, do you have any thoughts on this? Because I'll let you go first here, because before I go off.
I think Tampa Bay just got too comfortable and
Yeah.
hadn't really played any competitive hockey since like October.
Yeah.
So
He's
it's
not
like-
wrong.
No, I mean, he's absolutely right, because I think they were getting so much sunshine blown up their butt that how great they are, and this trophy and that award and that record. I think they started to buy into a little bit of the hype. Which, were they a good team? Yes, the record shows that. But when it comes playoff time, you can't factor in any of that. Like, leave it at the door. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen, and we saw it.
Yeah, no, we definitely did. I mean, for all the accomplishments they had in the regular season with the 62 wins and what was it, 128 points, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
Tampa Bay should have ran through Columbus, but Tortorella gave one of the best speeches in the locker room, and you have to go on social media and find it. It's very not safe for work, but he got them so wound up, and they showed up, and like I said, this was just something that Tampa Bay, and I think Dog touched upon it, very, very heavily. I think they took him way too lightly. I mean, Kurchetov had, a boneheaded suspension that he should never have done game 2.
I saw Draymond Green. I saw the comparisons to Draymond Green in the NBA.
Yeah. Just when he did that check there, and then he got suspended for game 3, and especially you're already down 2 games to lose one of your best scorers.
Yeah.
I mean, that was absolutely just insane. And then how Tortorella got Columbus to really lock down defense and just really impose their will.
Yeah.
Like, I think just Tampa Bay wasn't ready. And Bobrovsky, lights out as a goalie. I mean, you talk about somebody getting, exercising their demons. For, the coaching staff to put that much faith into him, especially with his struggles in the past in the playoffs, him showing up and just absolutely shutting down the most high-scoring offense in the NHL, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it is statistically, but I'm not even looking at that right now. I'm just going off straight emotion here. It was just telling. And I don't think Tampa had any reaction for it.
No, I didn't. Well, the interesting thing is they get some time off to rest, and Lord knows they're going to need it, because once they're obviously moving on, they're going to face the winner of the Boston Bruins Toronto Maple Leaf series, and good luck with that matchup, whoever it ends up being.
Well, it's just also funny in this that with Tortorella winning this series, with the trades that the Rangers panned out, this now actually hurts the Rangers because their second round pick, I think, falls from like 37th that they had to like 47th. So he stuck it to the Rangers again.
He found a way, but we still got the number 2.
That's right.
That's all that matters.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. But Columbus moved on. And then the other big story of the NHL playoffs, and it has a little ties to the 607, is the New York Islanders swept the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
And who is the goalie currently for the New York Islanders?
Robin Leonard.
Robin Leonard. Who was the AHL Binghamton Senator goalie when we brought home the Calder Cup.
Who they were begging to get out of Ottawa. They were like shipping him out the door. They were help packing his bags.
Yeah. I mean, he went from there to where? Buffalo, I believe, and then he wound up with the Islanders. I mean, this is just telling. Coach, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so. I think it's so funny when Pittsburgh has a bad out. Whether it's the first or second round, how the immediate reaction from that organization is everybody but Crosby is up for trade or Malkin. That's literally what their reaction is every time.
Fire sale.
It's always just this immediate like, okay, how do we improve? You already have 2 of the top 5 players in the NHL, and you think that you need to improve by trading everybody out?
Yeah.
You have Phil Kessel, who in Toronto was one of the best goal scorers, that is skating on your third line. That's how deep you are.
Yeah.
That's how deep you are. You talk about how we just talked about the NBA 5 minutes before, and you talk about DeMarcus Cousins and all of the Golden State Warriors and how everybody thought it was just going to be lights out for them. You literally have Crosby, who is leading is always top 5 in points. You have Malkin, who's always top 5 in goals, and then you have Kessel, who was a perennial goal scoring machine in Toronto, and you still need more help?
Yeah, this is just kind of wild to see. But it just goes to show, I mean, when you get into the playoffs, that you just have to get there, and then look out what happens. Because, I mean, the Islanders definitely had a great season, and especially the craziest takeaway from this, to me anyway, you have a new coach in Barry Trotz, who came from Washington and just reshaped the entire culture there. You lose John Tavares, who leaves in free agency after how many years?
Yeah.
And you definitely go into this defense-first mentality, and you're just locking down Crosby and company. I mean, Crosby only had 1 assist the entire series.
Which is just nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say to this, and back to the Tortorella point, I mean, being a Rangers fan, we saw that, playing defense like that can get you to the Stanley Cup Finals, especially when you can ride a hot goalie.
Right.
Which, in 2014 is exactly what the Rangers had, because that team had no business going to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they were riding Henrik Lundqvist and riding the fact that they were going to block 60 to 70 shots a game. So when you have that coupled with a good goalie, you can win games 1-0, 2-0. 3-1, 3-2, and still win games because you're blocking that many shots.
Right, and I mean, Leonard for the Islanders this series was goals against average 1.47 and a save percentage of 9.56.
I would be interested to see how many shots actually got on net, though, because I bet you there was a good percentage of them blocked.
Yeah, I mean, it quite possibly could have been. It's just so wild, though, to see. It's just we're talking about, we're in the playoffs, and especially the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, me personally, like I say, I love the NBA playoffs, but nothing touches the Stanley Cup playoffs. Nothing at all. I mean, just looking at every team that's in there, and honestly, I mean, there really isn't any clear-cut favorite, because the one that was Tampa Bay, and they already got knocked out.
Yeah, I think if you were doing an NHL bracket, I think you either had Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay going the whole way. I mean, the odds on Tampa Bay to win the whole thing going into this were 2-1.
Yeah. I mean, like I know when we gave our little preview on parlay points, too, and I think I mentioned on the show as well, I had Tampa Bay and San Jose getting to the finals.
Right.
I don't think either team is going to pull it off.
No, because, I mean, if we look at it, San Jose is currently down 1-3 against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of wild to see. And especially what we might even have a potential for with matchups, too. How crazy would it be for the Islanders to face off with the Capitals?
I was just looking at that, yeah.
Because that could happen next round.
Right, and Washington is currently up on the Carolina Hurricanes 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, the storyline's there.
Man.
What a Ranger fan nightmare would it be if it was the Islanders and the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah. I honestly don't know who would be rooting for it.
I would be rooting for the series to end in a 7-game tie.
I mean, maybe just
not even possible, but I want it to happen.
I'll take the West for 100.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody from the West.
Anybody for the West.
If the Islanders win the Stanley Cup, forget it. I mean, it's just going to be depression.
I mean, it's just going to be wild to think. But this is just tying back into to both NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. When you look at how the underdogs are doing, especially and I don't even say like Milwaukee, but we typically don't think about them as a playoff team. And I mean, obviously with Giannis, the emergence of his greatness in the league.
Yeah.
And then you flip it to
and you're watching it unfold right in front of you.
Right. I mean, you're talking about a star in the making. If you haven't even thought that he is a star now, because
if he gets a 3-point jump shot, my God, he'll
over.
Flip the world on its head.
It's over.
I mean, there would be nobody to compare him to. There'd be nothing.
That entire bench would be, you see a player make a crazy dunk or crazy shot, and the entire bench goes nuts. That bench would make a beeline for the locker room.
Even if he shot 40% from 3, my God, it'd be scary.
It'd be out of control. But it just goes to show that once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So, I mean, obviously, congratulations to the teams that got in there. I mean, for the Stanley Cup playoff runs, too. Columbus and the Islanders making the run and sweeping.
Please don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Anybody from the West on this one. But, hey, let us know what you think about the playoff action going on in the NBA and the NHL. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shudder running up, her spine is spinning. Long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the hashtag ODPH podcast. Pad, kick us off with that local minute.
Well, of course, local minute, we got to talk some Binghamton Rumble Ponies news. Of course, the last week has not been kind for the Rumble Ponies in terms of weather. Bit of a struggle to get some games in. Of course, as anyone knows, here in the Northeast, playing baseball in April is not always the brightest idea. They had won their game on the 11th against Erie by a score of 4-3. They were supposed to have games against Erie on Friday the 12th, a doubleheader on the 13th, and then Sunday the 14th. Those were all postponed because of weather. They had a game on Monday against New Hampshire where they won 4-1, and then on the 16th they lost by a final score of 4-1. They have a game on Wednesday against the New Hampshire at 6:35, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday they travel to Erie. Their next home date is on the 25th, where they make a 4-game stand against the Portland Sea Dogs before they start a game against Akron. More information, bingrp.com.
Definitely get down to the stadium when it's available, but the weather up here in the Northeast has not been the greatest for baseball yet.
No, I've done an April baseball game. It's not fun.
It's not fun. It's a little cold.
Yo, try broadcasting lacrosse outside in the cold. Then
give you
come
that.
talk to me.
I'll give you that.
Fair point. Fair point,
It is
Coach.
miserable.
Fair point. So let's start rounding those bases, shall we? Pad, you want to lead us off?
Well, I got a quick one that just came across my phone as we were sitting here recording that honestly just blew my mind when I saw this. A historic Major League Baseball streak has been snapped. Now, I wasn't aware this was a streak. I wasn't even aware this was going on. During the Cincinnati Reds game today, Joey Votto popped out to first base for the first time in his career, that being 6,828 at-bats.
Wow.
Holy crap, that is rather mind-boggling when you just figure out, the possibilities of baseball are endless, and he's never once popped out to first. That just mind-blowing. Also got to talk a little more baseball. Christian Yelich. If this man is not the mayor of St. Louis by now, he really should be, because he is owning St. Louis in every humanly way possible. Whoever the St. Louis Cardinals pitching coach is, going to give you a little piece of friendly advice. Give him the Barry Bonds treatment and walk this man. Because going into Tuesday night's game, Yelich had homered 7 times in 5 games against the Cardinals. He did it again. As we stand today, he is currently has 9 home runs, 26 RBIs with a 356 batting average, 448 on base percentage, and an OPS of 1.229. He's played like 18 games or something like that.
That's insane.
This man just owns St. Louis. Seriously, whoever the pitching coach is in St. Louis, walk him.
Yeah, I mean, Yelich is just out to such a hot start.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. And especially against one team is just how he's doing it. I don't know, but man, he is definitely putting in some work for the Brewers. Dog, what you got for your round in the base this week?
Always right in the golf world again. Tiger Woods won his 5th Masters.
That was impressive.
The return.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, wild to think about. I mean, obviously, with everything, with the injuries over the years with Tiger, to see him come back and win his 15th major now, I mean, it's just truly remarkable.
Now, and I heard he kind of made it interesting there at the end where, if he would have sunk a shot to win it and then he missed it, and then it was only up 1 shot, I was like, oh, we're getting interesting here.
Right.
Well, he had to come back, right? He was down a stroke going into that final and into 18. So I mean, he had to play it right, and I mean, good for him just being a veteran, knowing what he needed to do. I mean, I don't think he wanted anything to do with a playoff.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. I think it was the first time he had won the Masters that he didn't lead after 54 holes, I think.
Wow.
Something like that.
I mean, red shirts are back on Sundays.
I was saying that was the thing. Like I turned on a TV at one point. I was flipping channels and I saw it, and there was just something right about the world that, like, I heard Tiger was leading, and I'm flipping through channels, and I've said it before. I'm not the most avid golf watcher. I can watch highlights, but I don't sit there and watch the whole thing. There was just something right about flipping through the channels on a Sunday. Golf is on, and Tiger's in red and in the lead.
Well, I think it's just good for golf. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing.
Statistically, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good for golf right now. I mean, obviously the slump that he had, you can see and reflected in the ratings there that, especially when he was getting cut, after the first cut, people would just be disinterested in the whole thing. And some people wanted to watch the fall, and some people were hoping for the rise back to glory. And, I mean, you got the rise back now. And, from here, it'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Right. I mean, it almost felt like a Hollywood story, to be honest with you. Like that was the vibe I got from it. Because like I said, the biggest golf aficionado here on the ODPH is Sound Guy Galore JR, and then followed by Nostradamus. So this is just something that, like, I don't follow golf that much, but like I said, just watching it and just seeing how he performed, and obviously with everything he's gone through to come back, and now the talk is, well, everybody was immediately saying he's back, he's back, he's back. Which, I mean, this is a step in the right direction.
Right. Well, let's not put the horses before the cart here.
Right. But it's going to be interesting now that the narrative now switches towards his chase after Jack Nicklaus's record of 18 majors.
Which is, again, just good for golf.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, congratulations to Tiger, and where he goes from here, I mean, it's going to be really fun to watch. Coach, what you got?
Well, I mean, as we hinted on earlier, next week will be our NFL draft preview show, which is my favorite show that we do. I love the draft. I live for the draft. I mean, April is my favorite month to count down because I can't wait for the draft. So right now, teams are wrapping up, player interviews. Free agency is going to kind of come to a halt for the next week, and we're going to see where the chips will lie as far as who's going one. I mean, Bosa. Kyler Murray, a lot of names being tossed at once, so it'll be very interesting to see what Arizona does. I can't wait to predict this one because I have no idea. Last year, obviously, Cleveland pretty much announced, before we did the show that Baker Mayfield was going to be number one, so we kind of all had a clue. I'm pretty sure I went 6 for 6 on the first 6, so let's not forget that going back, all right? So I have no idea where this year is going to go. I mean, this is so up in the air. Yeah, from a draft standpoint.
This is one of the more wide open drafts that, like, you just don't know how teams are going to do. Like, usually you have a sense and a feel.
Well, it's going to be defensive heavy.
Right.
That we do know. But, I mean, obviously, once the quarterbacks start going, it's just who's going to be the first one to jump on the QBs early.
Yeah, because, I mean, the Giants are heavily rumored to be looking at one. And, I mean, with Arizona, you just don't know what they're thinking.
No idea what's going on there.
I mean, if they want to trade down, we know that the only thing for certain that we kind of have a feeling about is the Jets want to trade out.
Right. And, well, in San Francisco also might be interested in trading down, too.
Well, John Lynch does an amazing job with the draft.
He does.
So he makes magic happen. So I'm not putting anything past it. But like Coach was alluding to, we're going to be going NFL draft heavy next week. I mean, we'd probably be devoting the entire podcast to it.
Oh, absolutely. And the schedule gets released Wednesday night, which is as of when we're recording. So be on the lookout for your team. It gets, 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock tonight. Eastern time on Wednesday night. So, you can, find out that your team's going to go 8-8.
I'll say rumor is the opening night, Sunday night football game for week 1 is going to be New England and Pittsburgh, which, whoa, boy. Start the fireworks early.
What a way to start.
Start the fireworks early.
Yeah, shocker. The Giants are going to be opening with, guys, get ready for this.
Cowboys.
Dallas.
Oh, okay.
Wow. I mean, what a shock. What a shocking news here. The Dallas Cowboys for the 17th year.
I was going to say, it's like the 4th, 5th year in a row.
I said on Twitter, I go, it must be so easy for the Giants and the Cowboys to prepare for week 1 because they already know who they're playing.
Yeah. Right. There's no hidden suspense there. I think Nostradamus is going to hit us up with a Parlay Points preview of the NFL schedule when later this week and give his thoughts on what games you should look out for and definitely make some time to watch and be entertained with.
It can't be all Seattle.
Go Hawks.
There we go.
That's all he's got to say about that. And to close out, I have to mention something that we talked a little bit about last week.
Okay.
I was right about Luke Walton getting picked up by a Western Conference team.
Yes, you were.
Shoot your shot.
And I'm not saying that our fan base in Sacramento, which I want to give a shout out to, was listening because They swept in before Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And they fired their head coach, which we at the time we were recording
But yeah, it was still crazy that they fired him. I mean, they finished in 9th.
Yes.
And they were only a game back of the playoffs.
Yeah. And the fact they fired him and then immediately signed Luke Walton.
1 hour after Luke Walton got fired, he was already in contract negotiations.
It's got to be the world's fastest courtship.
I'm just saying, this was a brilliant move by the Kings. I mean, it was shocking because, like we said, their coach had got them, 9th seed, and they were almost on the cusp of making the playoffs, had one of the best years in recent memory. And to slide in and get Luke Walton before he hit the market pretty much, like I said, is absolutely amazing. And what he's going to do with that team, you want to talk about a team on the rise?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, Darren Fox, Buddy Hield, you talk about two guards right there that can mimic the play of what he needs. That's those two guards.
Yeah, they're going to be absolutely scary in a season or two. I'm not saying they're going to be instant playoffs next year, but don't doubt Luke getting them there because it's going to be a different atmosphere. And like I said, he's not going to have to worry about everything going on around him.
I would say the pressure isn't going to be the size of Mount Everest.
Right. He's going to have some time to work and develop that team. And if they play their cards right, I'm
saying the fan base is rabid and they're ready for a winning team because it's been a number of years since they've had a winning team. But I think this is going to be a scenario for them where they're going to see the plus side, they're going to see the upside and go, all right, we'll give you a couple of years, get your system built in, get the guys in around that you need, and let's go from there.
I mean, he might be want to be a little bit worried because, I mean, they did just fire a coach who took a team that had no business even flirting with the playoffs and almost took him to the playoffs. So he might want to be a little bit concerned.
You think maybe, but do you think just they had a stronger feeling that Luke was going to get released and they didn't, they said maybe this is the guy to get us over the top? I don't know. It's speculation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Both of us, we've said that Luke Walton we feel is a very good head coach. Obviously, we saw what he did in Golden State. I don't know if it was one of those situations where it's like, all right, we got to fire our head coach to land this guy because we know he's the one, where it's more so just, they just didn't feel like what they had in place was right, and Luke Walton just was a free agent at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many stories that, we just don't know the factors
involved. Yeah,
because,
they fired their head coach before Luke got fired.
Right.
So, they definitely took a risk because, who knows what would have been available had Luke not gotten fired.
Yeah.
Or had he held out for Phoenix.
Yeah, this is going to be something that we'll have to wait and see, but I tell you what, if you're a Sacramento Kings fan, you have to be
very happy.
You should be very happy and very excited for the future because
absolutely,
it looks extremely bright. That's all we got for this week. So for Nostradogmus, Edwin Fortunato.
See you guys later.
For your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
We got senior day for BU Saturday at 1 o'clock. I will be broadcasting the game. They are playing Hartford to try and get one win in conference play this year. So if you're available, please watch the game, root for BU, but most importantly, root for me.
ESPN Plus.
ESPN Plus.
Yes. For Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, #ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.